Good day from the land down under. We're here to talk about Australia, a place known for its stunning beaches, adorable wildlife, and surprisingly complex economic story. Now, when you think of global economic powerhouses, Australia might not be the first place that springs to mind. You might picture kangaroos, koalas, maybe even a Hemsworth or two. But hold on to your akubras, folks, because Australia's got a tale to tell. See, on the surface, Australia's living the dream. High standard of living, tick. Good work-life balance, tick. Education and healthcare, tick and tick. They've even managed to nail something many countries struggle with, wealth equality. Move over, Scandinavia, Australia's coming for your egalitarian crown. But, and there's always a but, right? This economic success story isn't as simple as it seems. Behind the sunshine and smiles, there's a rumbling volcano of potential economic trouble. Australia's often called the lucky country, and for good reason. It's got natural resources galore. We're talking iron ore, coal, natural gas. You name it, they've probably got it. This abundance has fueled their economy for decades. But as the old saying goes, don't put all your eggs in one basket. And by eggs, we mean natural resources. And by basket, we mean China. Yep, Australia's become heavily reliant on exporting its goodies, particularly to China. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with a little international trade, but being overly dependent on one trading partner, especially in a world that's, shall we say, politically and economically volatile, can be a risky business. Add to that Australia's close ties with the US, and you've got a country walking a geopolitical tightrope. And as if that wasn't enough, there are some homegrown issues bubbling away. Remember that high standard of living we talked about? Well, it comes with a hefty price tag, especially in the housing market. Think San Francisco or London levels of crazy. So while Aussies might be winning on paper, many are struggling to keep up with the cost of living in the real world. Let's talk about China, shall we? More specifically, let's talk about Australia's love-hate relationship with the Asian giant. See, for years, China's insatiable appetite for raw materials has been a goldmine for Australia. They've been digging it up, shipping it out, and laughing all the way to the bank. Iron ore, coal, natural gas, you name it, China wants it. And Australia, being the obliging sort, has been happy to provide. This economic love affair has seen Australia riding high, but some experts reckon it's more like riding a tiger. Why? Because dependence on any single trading partner is risky business, especially one as powerful and unpredictable as China. Picture this. You're a surfer, right? You catch a massive wave, riding high, feeling invincible. But then you realize you're on the back of a giant, unpredictable dragon. That's kind of where Australia is with China. The dragon's sneeze could send Australia tumbling. A shift in Chinese demand for iron ore, a trade spat, a global pandemic. Suddenly, that wave of prosperity turns into a wipeout. And remember, this isn't just about economics. China's growing global influence, coupled with its sometimes tense relationship with the West, puts Australia in a delicate position. Now let's bring this back down under, to the land of sun, surf, and sky-high house prices. See, while Australia's been raking it in from resource exports, those riches haven't exactly trickled down to everyone. In fact, for many Aussies, particularly young ones, the dream of owning a home is starting to feel more like a fantasy. Sydney, Melbourne, these iconic cities are now some of the most expensive places in the world to buy a house. We're talking median house prices exceeding $1 million Aussie. So, while the top end of town is living large, many ordinary Aussies are struggling to keep up with the rent, let alone scrape together a deposit. So, what's driving this housing affordability crisis? Well, it's a complex cocktail of factors. You've got low interest rates, a chronic shortage of affordable housing supply, and generous tax breaks for property investors, all fueling demand and pushing prices higher. Then, there's immigration. Australia has a relatively high intake of immigrants, which is great for economic growth, but it also puts pressure on housing, especially in those already pricey big cities. And let's not forget about foreign buyers, particularly those from, You guessed it, China, who see Aussie property as a safe investment. So, we've got Australia, sitting pretty on its pile of resources with China waving fistfuls of cash. Life's good, right? Not so fast. See, Australia's got this other best mate, the United States of America. They've been thick as thieves for decades. Military alliances, shared values, the whole shebang. But here's the kicker. China and the US. Not exactly best mates. More like rivals in a global game of chess. And guess who's stuck in the middle? You got it, Australia, trying to stay chummy with both sides without ending up as collateral damage. It's a delicate dance, this balancing act. On one hand, there's the economic powerhouse that is China, Australia's biggest trading partner by a mile. On the other, there's the US, a long-standing ally, a military superpower, and let's not forget the country that pretty much writes the rulebook for the global order. Australia relies on the US for security, intelligence sharing, and let's be honest, a bit of backup in a world that's starting to feel a bit like a tense Western movie. But cozying up too close to the US risks upsetting China, which could lead to economic retaliation, tariffs, trade barriers, you name it. So, what's a sunburnt country to do? Well, for years Australia's tried to walk this diplomatic tightrope, trying to keep both the US and China happy, assuring everyone they can be friends with everyone. It's like trying to be the peacemaker at a family reunion where everyone's secretly feuding about who makes the best potato salad. But as tensions between the US and China ramp up, trade wars, tech battles, military posturing, that balancing act is getting trickier. It's like walking on a tightrope that's getting thinner and windier by the day. One wrong step, and Australia could find itself tumbling into a geopolitical abyss. The big question is, can Australia really afford to stay neutral in this increasingly polarized world? Can they keep selling iron ore to China while standing shoulder to shoulder with the US on issues like security and human rights? Some argue that Australia needs to pick a side, align more closely with the US and risk Chinese economic wrath, or cozy up to China and risk alienating their long-standing ally. Others argue for a more nuanced approach, playing the middle ground, leveraging their unique position to try and build bridges, not walls. Section 1. The Great Australian Dream. More like a nightmare. Remember that high standard of living we talked about? Well, it comes with a hefty price tag, especially when it comes to putting a roof over your head. See, Australia's got this thing called the Great Australian Dream. Own your own home, backyard Barbie, the whole shebang. But for many Aussies, particularly young ones, that dream is starting to feel more like a nightmare. The housing market, especially in those shiny coastal cities everyone wants to live in, has gone completely bonkers. We're talking median house prices in Sydney and Melbourne exceeding $1 million Aussie dollars. Section 2. Houses of cards. What's driving the frenzy? So, how did we get here? Well, it's a classic case of supply and demand, but with some Aussie twists thrown in for good measure. First up, you've got low interest rates for what feels like forever. Cheap money means more people can borrow more money, which pushes up demand for houses. Then there's the supply problem. Australia's population is growing, thanks in part to immigration, but we're not building enough new houses to keep up. Add to that generous tax breaks for property investors who see Aussie real estate as a safe bet, and you've got a recipe for a price surge of epic proportions. Section 3. Generation rent locked out and priced out. The result? A generation of Aussies are being priced out of the market. They're stuck in a seemingly endless cycle of renting, watching their dream of homeownership slip further and further away. And let's be clear, this isn't just about avocado toast and smashed avo. This is about people's lives, their futures. It's about the stress of finding affordable rentals in a competitive market, the fear of being priced out of their own neighborhoods, and the growing sense that the deck is stacked against them. Section 4. Band-Aid solutions or real reform. Now, the government's not blind to this housing crisis. They've tried various schemes to help first-time buyers get a foot on the property ladder, things like grants and stamp duty concessions. But critics argue these are just band-aid solutions, doing little to address the underlying problems of supply and demand. What's needed, they say, is bold action. Things like building more affordable housing, reforming those generous tax breaks for investors, and maybe even looking at ways to cool down foreign investment in the market. Section 5. The shadow over the lucky country. This housing affordability crisis casts a long shadow over the Australian dream. It's creating a generation burdened by debt, delaying major life decisions like starting a family, and fueling a growing sense of inequality. The irony is, Australia is a wealthy country. But that wealth isn't being shared equally, and the housing market is a stark reminder of the challenges facing everyday Aussies. And unless something changes, that shadow is only going to grow larger. Section 1. The kids aren't alright. Remember that egalitarian paradise we talked about earlier? Well, it turns out there's a bit of an age limit on that Aussie utopia. While older Australians are sitting pretty, having reaped the benefits of a booming economy and a once-upon-a-time affordable housing market, younger generations are facing a very different reality. They're saddled with student debt, locked out of the housing market, and facing a future where the cost of living seems to outpace wages at every turn. The land of opportunity is starting to feel a bit like the land of too bad. You missed out. See, there's this growing intergenerational divide in Australia. On one hand, you've got baby boomers and older Gen Xers. They bought their homes when prices were, well, relatively sane. They benefited from decades of economic growth, and many are now enjoying a comfortable retirement. Then you've got millennials and Gen Z strapped with student debt, struggling to get a foothold in the crazy expensive housing market, and facing the prospect of paying for the retirement of their elders, while their own futures feel increasingly uncertain. Section 3. The inheritance you might not want. And here's the kicker. This intergenerational wealth gap isn't just bad for young people, it's bad for the whole country. When young people can't afford to buy homes, start families, or invest in their futures, it puts a damper on economic growth. It means less consumer spending, less innovation, and less dynamism in the economy. It's like a slow puncture to the tires of the lucky country. Section 4. Bridging the gap, a fair go for all. So what's the solution? Well, it starts with acknowledging the problem. The "she'll be right" mate attitude might have worked in the past, but this intergenerational wealth gap isn't going to magically fix itself. It's going to require some tough conversations, some policy changes, and a commitment to creating a fairer Australia, one where everyone has a shot at a decent life, regardless of when they were born. Section 1. Riding the wave or heading for a wipeout. So there you have it, Australia's economic rollercoaster, a land of undeniable wealth and opportunity, but also a country grappling with some serious challenges. The good news? Aussies are a resilient bunch. They've weathered storms before. Economic downturns, droughts, even the occasional venomous spider infestation. They've got that "she'll be right" mate spirit, an ability to laugh at themselves and a knack for finding a solution even when the odds are stacked against them. But the path ahead isn't going to be easy. Navigating geopolitical tensions, tackling the housing crisis, bridging the intergenerational divide, these are challenges that will require bold action, tough choices, and a willingness to rethink the status quo. The lucky country can't rely on luck alone. It's time to diversify the economy, invest in education and innovation, and create a fairer society that works for all Australians, not just a select few. Will they succeed? Well, that's the million-dollar question, or perhaps, given the state of the housing market, the billion-dollar question.
So hit that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications, and let's turn the page on a new adventure together. Get ready to experience books like never before, only on VBook 360. Like, comment, and share to support the channel and keep the video magic alive. Thank you for stopping by. And remember, Every video has a story, and every story deserves to be shared. See you in the next video.